Being alone and feeling alone are two completely different feelings, even if they may sound similar. An excess of solitude in our hearts can undoubtedly bring us sadness and depression. In this video, we will focus on the psyche of Ricardo Martinez, analyzing him through his own reflections in the last 3 fights we've seen from the character. His bout against Billy McCallum, the former WC champion, his title defense against Wally, and of course, his recent sparring session against Ichiro Miyata, which despite being very brief, revealed a lot about Ricardo. Now then, let's begin and understand the King's depression. We start directly with the fight between Ricardo Martinez and Billy McCallum. The two most powerful featherweights stood face to face. I understand perfectly that for many, the character of Billy McCallum might seem irrelevant, but the significance he had in the story is anything but. In the lead up to the match, the hype was through the roof. Even Ippo said it was basically a unification bout because Billy McCallum had renounced his title when he had the chance to fight Ricardo. Because despite being the champion, no one would recognize him as the strongest as long as Ricardo stood at the top. The American's determination was to prove that he was the strongest featherweight. He proceeded to throw a left jab in the air in such good condition that both Ippo and the Scamaras felt a chill. That man was truly in his prime. Let's remember this bout happened the very same night and immediately after the fight between Takeshi Sendo and Alfredo Gonzalez. The intensity of that match and how much it thrilled the audience left Ricardo somewhat withdrawn. As he felt the fire coming from the ring, from the floor, he began to apologize, as he always did, because he was incapable of creating a fire like that. He couldn't even imagine getting close to that level of heat and intensity. But maybe he could, if the man standing before him could meet his expectations. The match began with the challenger rushing at Ricardo. And no, I'm not going to summarize the whole fight if that's what you're wondering. I only want to highlight key moments. Something fundamental is how Ricardo began to approach his opponent. Something very uncharacteristic of him, while repeatedly telling himself that he had great expectations for his rival and pleading internally, "Please, don't disappoint me." They stared each other down in the center of the ring. One thing the story has emphasized countless times is that Ricardo Martinez never makes the first move. He always spends the first 3 minutes studying his opponent, and this fight seemed to be no exception. Or at least, that's what everyone, including other fighters and the audience, expected. We saw Billy McCallum take his Philly shell stance, his turtle shell defense, brought directly from Philadelphia. The tension was immense. Both fighters were within range, and the first to move was Ricardo Martinez. Everyone was so surprised, even Sendo fell from his chair. Ricardo is usually very cautious, collecting data in the early moments. But this time, he couldn't do that. He started with a barrage of jabs. As Ricardo observed, he could feel the heat in the ring cooling down under his feet. He was extinguishing the fire that those two, Sendo and Alfredo, had just lit. My fights never create the kind of spectacle they showed, he thought. Everything begins according to plan and ends according to plan. The audience just sees this harmonious performance, just as promised. Seeing Billy McCallum take his distance again, Ricardo took the initiative once more, launching with his lefts, something completely uncharacteristic for him. The rain of jabs was so constant that the challenger was clearly setting up a counter, and he did. He launched it straight at Ricardo, and for half a second, he surprised the entire crowd. But Ricardo had turned his neck. The damage was 0. Inside his head, Ricardo thought, "That was incredible. What a terrifying moment. I don't think anyone predicted the kind of carnage that's coming today." The fire in the arena was lit with just one blow, drawing a roar from the crowd. But Ricardo noticed immediately by the crowd's relieved gasp that the punch hadn't even landed. They haven't seen anything yet, he thought. Tonight will end the same as always. We could see the sadness on Ricardo's face and hear his internal monologue. My fights are so boring. How can I possibly create a fervor as strong as the one we just saw in the semi-final? What if I took hits on purpose? Would that make the crowd happy? No, that would be blasphemy, unforgivable. Even if I train, even if I dedicate my whole life to this and prepare with all my might for every match, I can't do anything that truly resonates with the audience. Are my fights boring? Ricardo kept questioning himself. I can see everything, I can feel everything, I can predict everything. That's why I never get hit. Is that really a sin? I'm not God. This body I fight with, if it takes a hit, it'll fall. I can feel pain, I can feel fear, I can even lose. How can I let it all out? I'm just a man with courage and dignity, just like anyone else. Why can't anyone understand? Why can't anyone see my machismo? Once again, Ricardo took the initiative in the match, taking control of the first round with surprising aggression. His coach quickly realized how much his fighter had been affected by the previous match, how he was acting unusually. The challenger again prepared a perfect counter, one that would surely land. But in that explosive moment, Ricardo blocked it. Excellent, he thought. Please, meet my expectations. Despite Billy's efforts to attack with a flurry of jabs, nothing connected. No matter how many punches he threw, the Mexican champion was completely untouched. And in the moment Billy tried to use his right to connect, he realized Ricardo would counter if he continued. He gave up and backed away, without Ricardo doing anything. The challenger kept his distance, and Ricardo grew impatient. "What are you doing? Give me more, please. Meet my expectations," he said, continuing to attack. "Come on," he thought, watching Billy move toward the ropes. Ricardo realized it was a trap, but he didn't care. He went in with left after left after left, an endless barrage. "Let's fight, with more spirit," he thought. But his opponent couldn't do anything. Every time he tried to counterattack, he got countered himself. All he could do was protect himself. The champion had no openings. "Why won't you come at me? Come on, fight. Give me more. Please, meet my expectations," Ricardo kept thinking, seeing Billy try to strike, but being blocked with ease. The relentless jabs had taken their toll. Billy could no longer feel his left arm. He couldn't even lift it to defend himself. Ricardo kept attacking, waiting for a response, hoping his expectations would be fulfilled. He began to dismantle the challenger with lefts, rights, 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. It was reminiscent of what Ippo Makunuchi had done to Ryo Mashiba, destroying the arm through pure force. He crushed him. Everyone was stunned. They knew Ricardo was strong, but not like this. And here, Ippo helped us understand Ricardo's feelings better. Our protagonist thought, there's really no one out there who can bring out his true abilities, no one he can measure himself against. Will he go his whole life without ever showing his real strength? That must be lonely. What bad luck, Ricardo thought. Once again, I wasn't tested. He won the match in the first round. It's not like I want fame or fortune. It's not like I want to be admired by the masses. I just want to know, was it right to dedicate myself to boxing? How strong am I? No one can tell me. No one will show me. No one will test me. I'd like to go a little deeper into this abyss, to the true heart of boxing, said Ricardo, wearing a very sad expression. Please, someone help me understand, he thought. Drawing Ippo's attention, how the champion, even in victory, looked so sorrowful. Every time Ippo had been in an amazing match, it was his training that had pushed him forward in the end. He was able to understand that all his effort and sacrifice had not been in vain, that thanks to his opponent, he had been able to let it all out. Has Ricardo never experienced that? Ippo wondered. Have all his matches been so trivial? That must be incredible. Recalling Takamura's words, there's a view only those who've climbed and suffered can see. That's why we climb. We climb to that holy ground. Don't call it lonely, he said. Call it extraordinary. Ippo then wondered, Ricardo-san, what do your eyes see right now? He saw Ricardo standing at a peak, unreachable and alone. Another powerful moment in this fight came from Alfredo Gonzalez. After his loss to Sendo and seeing this match unfold, he realized his time was over. He saw Ricardo like an older brother and didn't want to leave him alone. But Alfredo wasn't worried. He believed those two, likely referring to Ippo and Sendo, would not leave Ricardo alone. He said this while gazing at a star in the night sky. From here, we move on to Ricardo's next fight, his title defense against the wild child, the monkey boy, Wally. Before the match even began, Ricardo showed a genuine curiosity about this opponent. It was a fighting style completely foreign to him, and he didn't know how to approach it. We saw how Wally managed to pressure Ricardo like no one had before. In this match, we witnessed Ricardo's usual behavior, calmly studying his opponent, but this time it was different. Wally's erratic strikes and unpredictable movements left Ricardo unsure. At one point, Ricardo was about to launch a counter, but stopped himself. He wasn't confident it would land. By the end of round 2, Ricardo had only observed. Before the third round began, Ricardo told his corner that this was exactly the kind of opponent he had wished for. And in that moment, Wally was too much for him, not just because of his talent, but also because he carried the teachings of Miguel. Wally kept up the pressure, erratic and wild, and we could see Ricardo's analytical mind trying to decipher it. This theme would later resurface in the sparring session with Miyata. Ricardo's true power lies in his ability to think and analyze in every moment. He soon realized Wally's unorthodox movements had a purpose. They aimed for his eyes, to cause bleeding and blind him. Vorg Zangief even compared this to breaking the console to crash the system. This metaphor fits perfectly because later, Ricardo is described as a machine. As the match continued, Wally showed dominance. He landed clean shots on Ricardo's guard, something few had ever done. 3 rounds in, and Ricardo had done nothing significant. Yet Wally looked sad, even as he led. Ricardo, accepting he couldn't adapt through observation alone, took the initiative. Still, he couldn't help but marvel at Wally's tricks. Slowly, Ricardo understood. Wally was a hunter, hidden in the jungle, primitive, unpredictable, the alpha predator of pure boxing instinct. And yet, instead of avoiding it, Ricardo accepted the invitation into Wally's territory. The boy raised his hand and said, "Come, champion." Everything we've discussed about Ricardo's mindset helps us understand why this mattered so much. This fight, originally meant as an experiment to prepare for Sendo, had turned into something else. Ricardo wasn't facing a beast, he was facing a genius. And for the first time, Ricardo's eyes lit up with determination. Wally did incredibly well. He dodged, landed punches, and countered Ricardo multiple times. He left the crowd breathless. Even when Ricardo tried body blows, Wally's instincts were so sharp that he batted away the champ's fist, forcing Ricardo to hesitate. Something Ricardo rarely, if ever, experiences: fear. Wally landed a spectacular shot. Finally, someone was testing Ricardo. The Mexican crowd began to understand. Wally was powerful. His fire was reaching them. In the next round, Wally's energy began to wane. Ricardo started landing punches. The tide turned. Ricardo acknowledged something. He had no magical ability. He only used fundamental boxing techniques and perfected them. In this fight, Ricardo evolved. His jab, already flawless, became even sharper, faster, more precise, the ultimate modern weapon, the Omega. He launched his refined jab and dropped Wally. Miguel, Wally's coach, analyzed Ricardo. Nothing new, he called him a machine that collects data. Miguel had said it before, this was Ricardo's superpower. Ricardo prepared to end it with a body shot, but Wally, instead of falling, launched an uppercut. He was done, but smiled, ready for the final round. Ricardo was fired up. Despite his coach's orders, he would take the initiative. Surprised his predictions had failed, Ricardo thought Wally's weakness was body blows, but it wasn't. Waiting would be dangerous. In the final round, Ricardo reflected, "At home or abroad, the audience always wants to see me in trouble. When everything goes smoothly and according to plan, That's when the arena feels cold. But tonight? What is this pressure? What is this feeling? They have expectations. In you, he thought, referring to Wally. And in me. But more than that, I have expectations. There he stood, on that lonely summit, thinking, can you test me? Can you show me how strong I've become? It's been so long since I've had any sense of how far I've climbed. Please, test me right now. And so began a dangerous exchange of punches. Even though Wally seemed to be losing, taking more hits, he managed to land a devastating cross on Ricardo, a full-page spread. Sendo's and Vorg's shocked faces said it all. Ricardo's coach admitted the risk of fighting at close range. It was impossible for Ricardo to dodge everything, but Ricardo didn't back off. He stomped the ring, a clear invitation. This was the peak. Bill Stewart, Ricardo's coach, recalled a moment from Ricardo's youth. What does it feel like to be strong? The same words Ippo once asked in the very first chapter. You haven't changed one bit, Bill said. Wally went down again, but stood up, fighting for Miguel, the man who introduced him to the world outside his island. Wally kept trying, even as blood filled his eyes. All he could think was how grateful he was to Miguel. He attacked again, and Ricardo did nothing but defend. He acted as though none of the damage mattered. Then, for an instant, Ricardo saw Wally standing at the same height as him, on the same peak. They exchanged blow for blow. Miguel watched his student shine, his dear pupil, his son, figuratively speaking, going toe-to-toe with the strongest man in the world. Just before Wally collapsed, Sendo received his message. Sendo-san. Wally wanted to say, the rest is up to you. Wally, with the last of his strength, launched a smash that grazed Ricardo's face. A dangerous punch. One after another, Wally's punches could have ended the fight if they had landed. Seeing that kind of punch, feeling its danger, the fear, the thrill, it awakened something in Ricardo. Something we had never seen. He smiled, not a gentle smile, but a bloodthirsty, savage grin. This elegant man revealed a sinister side. With that cruel smile, Ricardo countered brutally. And before Wally could rise for another blow, Ricardo landed a final counter. He buried Wally. Ricardo Martinez had won. At the end of the match, he approached Wally, worried, because for a brief moment, Wally had reached the same summit as him. It was the first time Ricardo had experienced something like that. He acknowledged his opponent was incredible. Later, back in Japan, Ippo spoke with coach Genji Kamogawa. He confirmed that Wally had sustained a permanent injury to his right eye, an injury from which he would never fully recover. His boxing career was over. Our last insight comes not from the sparring with Miyata itself, but from a comment by Miyata's father. He explained that Ricardo always holds back, carefully measuring how much energy he releases to avoid accidents. This ties perfectly to what we saw against Wally. When they stood on equal ground, Ricardo let it all out. He released even the savage part he keeps hidden, perhaps his true strength. And what happened? As Miyata's father warned, there was an accident. Wally suffered a permanent injury. One last image, a double-page spread showing Ricardo's inner thoughts. The one line that stands out, what does it feel like to be strong? This line lives constantly in Ricardo's mind. The fact he cannot answer it, cannot understand how strong he is, or whether all his training has been worth it, or whether fighting for an unenthusiastic crowd even matters. It all circles back to a single question. What does it feel like to be strong? But maybe, for Ricardo, the real question is, how strong am I? Maybe finding that answer will help him understand true strength. Ricardo seeks the same answer as our protagonist, but they are two sides of the same coin. One who had to give it all up because he wasn't strong enough. But without a doubt, he'll return. That's Ippo. And another who has never stepped down from the peak, but still can't feel any satisfaction. That, everyone, was the depression of Ricardo Martinez. And I hope that with his match against Sendo, he can overcome it and finally show us what true strength is. Good night, champ.